Hey everybody, my name's Melissa, the Unlikely Hiker. Today we're going to talk about cold weather emergencies that we might experience out in the backcountry. Understanding and knowing how to prevent and treat them can save lives, so let's dive right in. First cold weather emergency that we're going to talk about is hypothermia. Hypothermia occurs when your body loses heat faster than it can produce it. It causes your core body temperature to drop, and it can happen in mild temperatures. So it's crucial to be aware of the symptoms and be prepared to deal with it. There are two different types of hypothermia, immersion and non-immersion. If you think about immersion hypothermia, think about the Titanic movie, cold water, exposure. You'll die eventually. But we're really going to talk about non-immersion hypothermia because although it's very possible for somebody to fall in the water and die of hypothermia, it's a little bit more likely that we're just going to get chilled while we're out there and we're not going to be super prepared. We lose heat in four main ways. Radiation, so think about the sun hitting your skin. You can feel the warmth of the sun, or if you take your hand and you put it up against your face, you can feel the heat from your hand because the heat from your hand is radiating towards your face. Convection, which is heat loss caused from rapid air movement around your body or your skin. So think wind. Conduction, you lose heat through conduction the same way that your hand gets cold if you're holding on to a cold drink. And finally, evaporation, which that's how humans cool down. We sweat, the water on our skin evaporates into the atmosphere around us, cooling us down. So now that we know what hypothermia is, how can we stop it from happening? Well, the first thing you can do is you want to make sure you dress in appropriate layers. I did make a video a few weeks ago about layering for colder temperatures, so you might want to go take a look at that. But to just summarize on that real quick, you want a snug-fitting synthetic base layer against your skin. That's going to wick the moisture away, and it's going to help keep your skin dry. And then you're going to want an insulating layer, a puffy or a summit layer. That's a lot of us call it here in the Northeast. And then a hard shell or a rain jacket that's going to keep the elements out and it's going to help trap heat in. And of course, don't forget insulation for your head, your hands, good insulation on your feet, neck gaiter, all of these kinds of things. And don't be shy about bringing duplicates. When your clothing or your hat or your gloves get wet, you will chill down very fast. You also want to make sure you stay dry. That's where the right base layer is going to come in handy. You want to minimize sweat because that is going to be one of the fastest things that is going to cool you down while you're outside. You want to avoid sweating excessively if possible. You might just want to pace yourself while you're out there. Take breaks, make sure you drink enough fluids, and adjust your clothing so that you're not getting too warm. If you do happen to get wet or your clothes get soaked with sweat or precipitation, you want to make sure you get out of those clothes and put dry clothes on. If for some reason you can't get out of your wet clothes, consider getting inside of your tent, a shelter, a lean-to, a sheltered area, any place where you're going to be blocking out some of the elements and the wind that is going to make you cold. Let's talk about recognizing these symptoms of hypothermia. The very first symptom I'm sure all of us are familiar with, and that would be shivering. Shivering is the first thing your body is going to do to try and warm itself up when its temperature starts to decrease. It's just a natural reaction, and all that twitching in your muscles is going to generate heat. As your core body temperature starts to drop a little, there's a few other things that can happen. You also might see confusion, fatigue, and what we refer to as the umbles, and that would be stumbles, mumbles, fumbles, and grumbles. And that's just, it's a generalized state where you're kind of going downhill. You're not thinking clearly, you're not speaking clearly, you're tripping over everything or falling down or missteps. It's just a deterioration of your body's ability to compensate for what it is experiencing at that moment in time. As it progresses further, you may even have an experience of feeling hot. This is why sometimes people who are hypothermic, they take their clothes off. They are feeling this overwhelming sense of heat. At that point, it could be too late. In late stages, somebody will become unconscious. If you or anyone in your group is experiencing any of these symptoms, but especially in the very beginning when you're starting to shiver, it's absolutely imperative that you take immediate action. And what is immediate action, you say? Let me tell you. The first thing you want to do is you want to get the person out of the situation they're in and into a warmer, more stable environment. So I do understand as we're out backpacking, it's not always possible to get somebody into a warm environment, but it should be an improvement over whatever situation you're finding yourself in at that point in time. If you're out in the open, seek shelter. If you can put a tent up, get inside the tent. Take off your wet clothes, put on dry clothes. You can share your body heat with somebody else. Look in your pack. What do you have? Extra jackets, gloves, hats, socks that you can use as mittens, pack liner. You could use a Mylar blanket. You want to just throw all of what you have at the person to try and change your situation. It's really important to take a full approach because you are going to need to seek other help to get yourself out of the backcountry so that you can reverse this before it does get tragically deadly. If the person who is suffering from hypothermia can drink and swallow, you could offer them warm liquids. Don't ever give any alcohol or caffeine because that's going to make the situation a little bit worse. Don't forget you can use things like body warmers or hot hands. Like I said earlier, you just want to take everything that you have and see if you can help make that person's situation better or your own situation better. We tend to be a little bit worse at noticing when something is wrong with us and then taking action on that. But by being aware and educated, you're going to give yourself the best possible chance while you're out there. By taking swift action when the symptoms first arise, you can halt the progression. Otherwise, by ignoring the symptoms, you're putting yourself and or your entire group at risk. And there's no sense of having more than one patient. Trust me, it's never worth it. You do need to remember that hypothermia is, in fact, a medical emergency. It's important to seek further medical care. The second cold weather emergency that we're going to talk about is frostnip and frostbite. Frostnip is what most of us are experienced with, and that's just when your hands get really cold and red and kind of painful, but there's no lasting damage to the tissue underneath. You will recover from it. It doesn't make you any more at risk to get it again. And this tends to happen on the hands, the feet, the nose, the cheeks, the lips, the ears, anything that is more often exposed than other parts of our body. Frostnip is the mildest form of frostbite. When you do have frostnip, you can just rewarm the skin. You could use something like hot hands, but be aware that if your frostnip is a little bit stronger, you might not feel how hot that hot hands is. Or your cold skin is going to feel that hot hand as even hotter than it really is. So it really wouldn't be my first go-to unless it's the only go-to, because there's always other ways to warm your hands, especially. You could stick them under your armpits. You can rub them together. You can put dry gloves on or socks on your hands. You could make fists. You could put them up inside of your shirt. Somebody else could hold on to your hands. And, I'm just specifically talking about hands at the moment. But if your cheeks had frostnip, you could cover them up with your warm hands. So there's things you can do. So that's why hot hands wouldn't be the first thing I would reach to. Just be cautious because they can do a little bit more damage and not be as helpful as you might think. But if you had to take a hot hands and put it inside of a neck gaiter and then use it, that might be a little bit more acceptable. You just don't want to cause further damage by burning somebody. And with frostnip, sensation returns after the skin has been warmed. So again, no permanent damage. Frostbite is a more severe form, and there are different types of frostbite. There's partial thickness and full thickness, which you might recognize those terms when it comes to burns. Frostbite occurs when the underlying tissue starts to freeze. Frostbite can affect any part of the body, but again, it tends to be in the common areas: hands, feet, nose, cheeks, ears, things of that nature. If you think about, I think of Mount Everest, really, when I think of frostbite. I don't know why. With frostbite, you might notice a white, waxy, and hard appearance to the fingers. And that's because, like I said, the tissue underneath is starting to freeze. You do develop ice basically like little ice crystals in your tissues, and that's the partial thickness frostbite. Full thickness is where the tissue starts to die. It is frozen down to the bone. So you can have partial thickness where there's partial freezing of the tissue, and full thickness where everything, including the bone, is frozen. Severe frostbite absolutely can lead to the death of the tissue, the skin, and the loss of appendages or tissue. Treatment for frostbite is similar to frost nip in that you want to rewarm the area. With frostbite, you want to rewarm the area slowly. You never want to rub the area because it is frozen and there's ice crystals. You can do further damage by rubbing that together because it's like rubbing glass in your tissues. So you don't want to do that. The best thing to do, if you can do it, is you want to submerge the frostbitten area in warm water for 15 to 30 minutes. However, if you're not able to warm and keep warm a frostbitten area, it's better to not rewarm it at all because you can absolutely do more damage to a frostbitten area if you rewarm it and it refreezes. You're going to do more tissue damage than if you had just left it alone. Some strategies to mitigate frostbite are similar to hypothermia. You want to get the person out of the cold environment and get them into a warmer environment. You want to use anything at your disposal to warm up the frostbitten area. Keep in mind though, if you cannot keep it warm, keep it cold. You want to remove any wet clothing and replace it with warmer, dry clothing. Gradually rewarm the area without rubbing. There may be a delayed sensation after rewarming with more severe frostbite, just so you know. Do not use hot water or excessive heat to warm an area, again, because you absolutely could do further damage. Absolutely seek medical attention. This is a medical emergency. It's up to the medical professionals to assess what that person may or may not need. Me discussing these topics is in no way a substitute for a medical conversation for you to have or other research regarding these cold emergencies. I am just sharing what I know about them with you so that we can all be better prepared in the backcountry. But that being said, the winter is a wonderful time to go enjoy the backcountry. It's just important that you take basic precautions and you have basic first aid knowledge that you can take with you. It's ultralight because it's up here, right? You're not carrying anything extra. And by the way, winter is not the time to skimp on gear. It is absolutely worth the wait to bring a few pairs of gloves, a few pairs of socks, an extra change of clothes, an extra base layer, an extra hat, whatever. This is not the time to prove yourself about how lightweight your pack can be. It's absolutely better to bring a few extra items, especially when it feels like the weather is trying to kill you. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Again, anything I say is not a substitution for medical advice and a conversation that you have with your doctor. I do have a medical background, but I'm just a face on the TV, right? Nothing more. Have a conversation, do your homework, arm yourself with knowledge. And I think if we do that, we're all going to be better prepared in the backcountry. And we'll be prepared to have fun too, because winter is a great time to be outside and you should do it. That's what I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you found some value in this video, please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe to my channel. Take care. We'll see you out on the cold trail. Bye-bye.